It is not very often we can say with much accuracy that a week has been a watershed, but this one has. This week, millions of us have had the chance to sit forward in our chairs and watch a group of young people as they break down some very out-of-date stereotypes.
Edward Minor Gallaudet, son of Thomas Hopkins Gallaudet, co-founder of the nation's first school for deaf children and after whom Gallaudet was named, opened a school for deaf students in 1857. In 1864, a collegiate division was created, establishing the world's only university for deaf and hard-of-hearing students. This division was also known as Gallaudet University. Fast forward to 123 years later, and Gallaudet's sixth president, Dr. Jerry Lee, announced his resignation. Those from the deaf community, including the National Association of the Deaf and the President's Council on Deafness, made it known that they wanted Gallaudet's next president to be deaf. By February 1988, the Board of Trustees, with the help of a search committee as well as 8 on-campus groups, had 3 finalists. Dr. Harvey Corson, a deaf man who is currently the superintendent of the Louisiana School for the Deaf, Dr. I. King Jordan, a deaf man who is serving as Gallaudet's Dean of College Arts and Sciences, and Dr. Elizabeth Zinser, a hearing woman who is the Assistant Chancellor of the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. March 1, 1988 was a crucial day for the Deaf President Now movement, also known as DPN, because this was the day of the first fully organized rally. Flyers that were handed out during the rallies and protests drew parallels between the deaf community and other minority groups, stating that the protests were similar to a civil rights movement. On Saturday, March 5, 1988, the Gallaudet Board of Trustees met at the Mayflower Hotel in downtown Washington, D.C. The board had scheduled to announce their choice for the university's next president on Sunday evening. Even though there were over 100 deaf prospects and 2 out of the 3 finalists were deaf, the board selection for president was Elizabeth Zinser.
We picked Dr. Elizabeth Ann Zinser as the 7th president of Gallaudet.
No!
Was because she is a very talented educator.
This decision caused discontent among the deaf community.
I feel like this is a nightmare. I can't imagine that Gallaudet University Board of Trustees would have chosen a hearing president, especially after our support at the Deaf President Now rally.
We will get the information out that this is the greatest insult to deaf people of America. 26 million of them, and they are disgusted. No question about it. And I do not intend to sit back. We'll have an organizational meeting tonight to discuss what we will do about it. This shows that we are not the ones who are really deaf, but it is they, the board, who are deaf.
Under the suggestion of Gary Olson, the president of the National Association of the Deaf, the protesters marched down to the Mayflower Hotel and demanded an explanation. They were not happy with the answer. That night ended with most of the marchers leaving and walking to the White House to meet with other marchers. Together, they marched to Gallaudet's campus. That night, the group of protesters put together a list of 4 demands.
The first one was that Zinser resign and a deaf president be selected. The second one was that the chairman of the Board of Trustees, Spillman, resign. Third, there would be a 51% majority of deaf members on the board. And fourth, that there be no reprisals.
Representatives from the protest, including some students, faculty, and staff, brought the demands to the board in a meeting that lasted over 3 hours. At the conclusion of the meeting, Spillman told the group that the board had rejected the 4 demands. Spillman and the others then proceeded to the university's auditorium to make their announcements. However, before she was able to get started, Dr. Harvey Goodstein, a deaf faculty member, walked onto stage in front of her and told everyone that the demands hadn't been met and that there was no use in staying. He then proceeded to encourage everyone to get up and walk out of the auditorium.
We just met with the board, and they have refused to meet our demands. so shall we leave?
The protesters then marched to the Capitol building to listen to passionate speeches and words of encouragement. By Tuesday, March 8th, 4 students had emerged as leaders of the protest: Bridgetta Bourne, Jerry Covell, Greg Hillbach, and Tim Rorris. On Wednesday, March 9th, student leader as well as student body government president Greg Hillbach was interviewed by Ted Koppel on ABC's Nightline, along with deaf actress and Academy Award winner Marlee Matlin.
ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Why not now? Why not now? Look at me. Look at me.
I'm having a very hard...
No, that's old news. I'm tired of that statement. One day, again and again, someday a deaf person. We've got to break this cycle.
On Thursday, March 10th, there was speculation that Zinsser and Spillman were going to force their way into the campus, so the students drove Gallaudet school buses to the gates and deflated the tires. Students from other schools for the deaf arrived in busloads, and local and national businesses donated supplies and money, including a check for $5,000 from the American Postal Workers Union, hand-delivered by the union's president, Mo Biller.
So again, in demonstrating our solidarity with
Thank you very much.
Later that day, in front of Chapel Hall, I. King Jordan renounced his support for the board's decision to appoint Zinsser, and that he fully supported the protesters and their 4 demands.
So yesterday, because I had been a candidate and wanted to be both reasonable and fair, I gave a statement recognizing the legal authority of the board to name the president of Gallaudet University. In fact, my personal reaction to the board's decision was and is anger. The students, joined by the staff and faculty, have focused the world's attention on the larger issues. I must now publicly affirm my support for the point of view held by the Gallaudet community. For demand.
That night, Zinsser announced her resignation.
I concluded, therefore, that the best way to restore order and return this university to its business of education was to pave the way for the Board of Trustees to consider the selection of a president who is hearing impaired. I tendered my resignation last night.
Though protesters were happy with this announcement, there are still more demands to be met. They got a permit and marched to the Capitol building, this march being planned and advanced. On Sunday, March 13th, the members of the Board of Trustees returned to Washington for an emergency meeting to discuss what to do next. In the evening, Jane Spillman hosted her last press conference.
Today I submitted my resignation from the chairmanship of the Board of Trustees of Gallaudet University and from the board. I took this step willingly because I believe strongly that it is in the best interest of the university.
I. King Jordan became Gallaudet University's first deaf president.
Give the highest praise to the students of Gallaudet for showing us exactly, even now, how one can seize an idea with such force that it becomes a reality.
Because those of the Gallaudet community and the deaf community as a whole showed a fierce example of strength, forcefulness, and determination that week, they were able to gain the deaf president that they were denied for 123 years, making this a prime example of what it means to take a stand.